Stay connected as we discuss shared passions and firsthand experiences intended to enlighten, entertain, and encourage you to try new things. This is not a how-to, this is a why you should. Welcome to the You Should podcast.
Yeah, let's go. So we're stoked you're here. I think one of the reasons we really wanted to have you in is a lot of people our age have kids in youth sports. And as you know, it's a crazy winding path. There's so many different directions it takes. And as a parent, we're trying to navigate our kids to have them be the best thing they can be, but also we're also navigating and dealing with our own emotions, right? And, you know, good teams, bad teams, good coaches, bad coaches, and everything in between. And there's so many different thoughts that I think go through parents' heads that, you know, one of the things I've always loved about you is that you are super level-headed. My daughters have been on 3 or 4 year teams, and your intention is always, hey, I'm gonna put the fundamentals and I'm gonna put the kids first, right? And then the outcomes and everything else is gonna fall where it is. So how did you get involved to say, hey, I want to be a coach for my daughter's teams? Like, when did that first start with you?
Well, it's funny, I didn't. So the first year she played softball, I didn't coach. And I don't think she had played soccer yet. But I went through the first year and I just kind of sat and watched what was going on. And it was interesting to just sit back and watch, especially, you know, kind of my background. So I didn't coach. And then the second year, I don't know if I just, because the coaches she had they did a good job, but I just felt like, I don't know, I just felt like the fundamentals of the game weren't being taught. And it's funny because I just went to my nephew's game the other day and it made me really start thinking about a lot of that stuff again. And it's funny because now I can't watch, not about what happens or how good somebody is, but I keep, you know, it runs through my head like, oh, you guys should do this or people should do this. So it's so funny. But I started with my daughter when she was 6. So her first year she played, and then the second year of 6s, I started coaching softball.
And I feel like at 6 years old, you really are at ground zero, right? So it's, hey, we need to, especially with softball, with baseball and softball, there's so many rules. How do I get these girls to even begin to field and hit and throw the ball and catch the ball and then try to decipher outs and all that? So how did you approach the initial learning of the actual game of softball? And then what do I need to teach them as 6 and 7 year olds?
Yeah. So kind of the way that the whole thing played out was in rec, you can pick 5 kids. Well, I always just pick my daughter's friends. And then you just get assigned other kids. And you forget, and I think this is one of the biggest things that I would say to parents is, they forget what recreational sports is about. Now, recreational sports, I mean, you're getting kids whose parents are shoving them in. You're getting kids who are smart as can be, but don't have any athletic skill and may not even want to be there. So my whole thought was, I kind of took the level of kids. My number one is I had 2 goals. One, teach every kid the fundamental aspects of the game. And I figured you could do that because it's very simple. Well, you would think it's very simple to be able to position yourself to go field a ground ball. But there's things you have to do. So I would set up drills and stations in order to do it. And then the other one was my goal every season was to make sure the kid wanted to play the next year. So by doing that, the number one aspect was the environment. So I created, you know, as Mark knows, we always had a bunch of jokes. I would sing songs with the kids and, you know, just create an environment that they always wanted to play in, because I know that if somebody comes to try out or somebody comes to practice, they get in the car and their parents can tell within 30 seconds if a kid likes the team or doesn't like the team by the kids, the players, and it's my job to create that environment.
And as you would get into the season and you might start to see a separation of maybe talent, skills, whatever that looks like, how did you, I think the great point is, no matter if you're our best player or just learning the game, I want all of you to come back. How did you kind of approach when you started to see that separation of maybe some talent? Hey, you know what? I don't care if you're the 12th person.
Yeah.
I'm still going to make this so fun for you to want to sign up next year.
I just tied them all into the same type of drill. So a perfect example is in softball, you come out and half the kids can't throw and can't catch. Well, we put fundamentals in for specific progressions to build them up, because my goal was by the end of the season, you should know how to put your arm up, angle it correctly, and make a throw. But then I would have the kids who could catch and throw, play catch together. And then I would have a coach assigned to each kid who couldn't. So my whole goal was for me to have kids just throw balls and run back and forth, going to get balls. That doesn't accomplish anything. So that was my goal. So I would kind of separate the kids into different categories and then kind of figure out where they were. But as far as drills and stuff, they can all, especially at that level. I mean, everybody. I mean, we did some crazy stuff, but I tried to create a very fast paced environment. Like we would have a station, there'd be 3 cones set up, 2 of them where their feet position and 1 where their glove goes reaching out. They would just start over here, take off, run over, set up to go. And they wouldn't even feel the ground ball. Then the next kid would go. Then the next kid would go. And then on the next station over, it was just standing in one spot, just receiving a ball. And then I would have another coach at first base. And these kids were 6 at the time. Another coach at first base, and we would pick kids that could receive balls at that point, and we would just have them throw balls to them so that they could get a feel. Because to me, and it's so funny you say that because I watched it the other day, I wanted the girls to produce results, which was, even though you're not tracking outs, if you made an out, I felt like the kids should know about it. So I would put somebody at first that could catch, and we would rotate them around. That way, if a kid picks up a ball at third base who's maybe going to make 1 play all season, makes the out, now all of a sudden it's kind of a victory for them, and just watching them go through it and the excitement to it. And even, so like my own daughter, kind of how I went down the path with her as far as catching. And that's the biggest thing I noticed. It's hard for kids to catch at younger ages, but I would just take a glove and I would make her keep it in the same spot. And I would just throw 15 balls in her glove. And then I go, okay, cool, we're done. Let's go in the house. And she'd go, okay, well, let's do some more. Well, she was kind of like that. Most kids aren't. But my other daughter, we would do the same thing. But then I would throw one to her right a little bit. But I would do the same thing every time. So my goal was teach them the motion. Here, here, here. Just teach them the motions of everything. Like to me, I had one station where kids just walk up and position themselves in the batter's box. Why? Because every kid should know how to stand in a batter's box. I mean, it's part of the game, but it had to be a station. It had to be something that, they kind of did 50 times every single practice.
Right.
And I think you don't even think about it.
Well, I think a lot of coaches, might bypass that thinking, hey, I want to get them live pitching. And then, the kids in there, just how do I stand? How do I swing? I'm missing 50 balls. I don't like this.
I just watched it the other day. I went to coach pitch and they probably positioned 6 kids. And these kids are all maybe in their 3rd year. And they positioned 6 kids on where to stand. But again, I feel like looking back on it, it's just things you don't think about. Yeah, it's wild.
So with your background, playing college baseball, getting drafted by the White Sox, reaching AA, were there fundamentals that maybe coming up through an organization, how did you get that concept, that mindset to say, hey, I really am going to start from the very, very start of each fundamental in, softball and build off that?
Yeah, the truth behind it is when my daughter
we want the truth, Steve.
Well, we had played, I think that was when she was 2nd year of 10. So we had already played 2 years of All-Stars and 2 years prior to that. She had her group, which a lot of the times we had a lot of the same group. Their group did more drills, like specific drills for very progression type things, than I did until I got to college. That's when I said something has to be different. Like you have to teach the kids the foundation, the fundamentals of the game. And we still talk about it to this day.
How many times do I text you when I'm watching a major league game, the Angels, and I go, fundamentals? It's just one word. And we go back to, because this guy stresses that more and more, but even at the professional level, more fundamentals are not.
If you watch a game, it's wild.
It's crazy.
So a perfect example of that is, so I have a buddy of mine who he was coaching travel ball at the same time I was. And I think at that time our kids were 16. And, there's a lot of technical stuff and fundamental stuff. So he said to me, hey, I'm really struggling at shortstop. I have this one kid who's super athletic, an incredible arm, but she's not making the plays for me. So then I had known one of these other girls that was playing third for him. And I said, well, why don't you put Jordan over there? And he goes, well, she doesn't have the range. I go, well, let me ask you a question. How are you going to win games, right? You're going to win games by making all the plays you should make. And he goes, yeah. I go, well, then she's your player. So if she's not going to make that extra step in that diving play, probably not going to be made anyways. So why not just put the girl who has a, 950 fielding percentage and just makes the play she's supposed to?
Right.
And that was my whole concept. So my whole concept of teaching kids fundamentals was me not really being pushed to do it, even in high school. In high school, they still do the same thing. And I crack up every single time. They go out,
take infield practice,
they hit
right?
a bat, and they hit a ground ball.
Yep.
I watched these coaches get mad at these kids for not fielding a ground ball, but then their footwork's all wrong.
Right.
Their glove positions are all wrong. So I'm thinking, why are you yelling at a kid for not fielding a ground ball when you're not even fixing it? It drives me nuts.
So when you were in the sixth, and it really is, hey, I want to teach the game. I want these girls to learn the game, learn fundamentals, right? Learn how to field the ball properly, throw properly, hit properly. And then there's a transition, right? And then there's hey, we want to start winning games, and we're kind of moving into maybe more of like the subtleties of the game. Let's take an extra base. Let's do this. Let's steal. Let's be aggressive, because we do want to win. And then there's all-stars. And, at what point did you start to see that next phase of the game come in, and you're like, okay, now we need to advance our knowledge, and I need to get into the girls, this next level of thinking and just kind of.
Well, one of the advantages we had is rec was always super fun throughout organization. It was good. We taught the kids, but, everybody ended up with different level of kids. And it was always the same because of the way the draft played out. They made sure that every team got one good pitcher. They kind of tricked it out. But it was cool because as we got to all-stars, then you could really do some stuff that was wild, and where people. My whole goal is I always wanted, no matter what level it was, whether it was my rec kids or my all-star kids, I wanted parents to look and go, wow, she just side shuffled, got herself in position to field it. To me, that was a win. So I would always tell the kids, even when I got to 18, I would say, you did everything right. You didn't make the play.
Right.
So that's irrelevant. But then to kind of catch yours, it does get more competitive as you go. But I was always very conscious of, one, why I'm there. Two, that parents were always there, and that these are young ladies and young kids. So I always knew that side of it. But then as the levels kind of creeped up, it does become far more difficult.
Yeah. And when you would get your all-star team, right, and now you're getting girls that you didn't coach, right? Maybe you have a couple from your team, you're kind of getting the collection. Before you guys would kick off the all-star season, would you go back to, hey, I need to.
Back to the basics.
Back to the basics, right.
Because So we had a good example is we had a girl who her dad coached in the league and was kind of one of those, we do things my way, always wanted to win type thing.
Was he an assistant coach or?
He was a head coach for another team.
Yeah.
This kid, crazy athletic, 6 foot. At that time, she's probably 5'10", crazy athletic. But she would field the ground ball, be running around third, and she would grab the ball and run. And this is in rec. But this is probably our 10U season. So when she came to me, I tried to say it without saying it. Listen, I don't care what your dad's told you. It's all wrong.
So how do you say that?
So what I did is, this is what's funny. And this
Or not say it, right? How do you teach that?
So what I did is, I never said it, but so this is probably the most athletic kid on my team. We would I said, I need you to show up 20 minutes before we start practice. And they're 10 years old at this time. And I would take 4 buckets of balls, and I went through the basics of footwork with her.
Wow.
It would start with, and she was a shortstop. It would start with, okay, I'm going to fake roll this ball. You run and set up. She would have to do it 50 times because she didn't even set up correctly. So how could we get to the next step?
So within those 50, you're like, hey, shuffle this way or kind of.
Just set up, run, left foot forward, right foot back a little bit, arms out. Okay, go back, do it again. Go back, do it again. Go back, do it again. Then we would roll the ball. Then I would do the same thing and roll the ball. Okay, now get into a throwing position, but don't throw the ball. We do 50 of those. Then we would throw halfway. So it was just bucket after bucket.
And was she down for that? She was like, wow, she probably started to see the results.
Oh, absolutely. You could totally see it.
Yeah.
But it worked out really well, and it was awesome. But it was kind of one of those things that, I had to go in and break habits without saying that I was breaking habits. And again, not that I always did it correctly, but I believe if fundamentals are there, and that was my whole thing. You win because you do things correctly. You could put a kid who's hitting 200 But if they do things the right way, it's going to come out ahead. You're going to win. It's going to teach itself. So my whole goal was always at the end of the season, I wanted the parents to be like, wow, not even, oh, we won a medal or we won anything, but wow, we're fundamentally good. We have good footwork. My daughter knows how to, do this. She knows how to do that. That was kind of always my thought behind it.
So my question is, how much did SportsCenter's top 10 plays hurt your coaching because everybody wants to dive rather than shuffle to pick it up, right? Everybody wants to make the dynamic play. We used to have kids that would actually purposely wait till the last minute so that they could dive.
Oh, yeah.
You could have took 3 steps and just fielded it routine.
But to me, that's a habit of teaching from the beginning,
right?
Like that's a habit of challenging them to, in practice, is challenging them to, can you get 4 steps? Almost to the point where they're now bragging because they were able to get there without having to dive.
Right.
So like mentally I would do. But to answer your question, the fortunate side for me was I coached girls. They really didn't much. So I didn't have any leg kicks. I didn't have the big sunglasses. So I was kind of fortunate on that side of it.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But as far as the boys go, that would be my approach. I mean, they're so aggressive and they love to do that stuff. I would absolutely dive into that side of it. I would challenge them. I would put a cone 6 feet to the left, 6 feet to the right. And I would just say, if you dive, you lose. You would be blown away. But then again, I would go back and teach them, no matter what age they were. If they were 10, I would teach them the technique to cross over, stay down low, and cross over and set themselves up in a position. And you would be blown away that, I don't know, you practice for 3 months, twice a week. Plus, I incorporate those into your warm-ups too. You'd be blown away at how much ground these kids will cover just by fundamentally doing it the right way. And then for me, I would just say to them, I always promoted not that you made the play, but did you do this stuff correctly? So I would say, you just went 6 steps without having to dive. That's how I would teach it, only because I know exactly what you're saying, especially with boys. It's cool to go do that.
Correct.
But but you just have to find a way to get them to understand how cool it is the other way, or I'll bet you can't do that. Just challenge them in those ways.
I've heard from basketball coaches, the single greatest thing that hurts youth basketball today is Steph Curry. Nobody wants to do fundamentals because why? I'm going to hoist everything up from half court. If it goes in, life's good. I don't have to learn how to dribble or pass or, none of that matters. Just lob up threes.
I think one of the other brilliant things that you do is you incorporate every parent and you give them a job to do during a practice, during a game, throughout the season, right? How did you develop that? Because I think for coaches that are listening, and I think or even parents that they don't want to coach, but they still want to be involved. How did you develop that? How did that come about? And how did you sell that and get the buy-in?
Well, again,
it's amazing. It's amazing.
There's a little bit of trickery there too. I needed them in order to do what I wanted to do.
How about your station?
Yes. And especially as we got to the all-star side of things, I ended up being a head coach a bunch on the all-star side. But I needed them to, because in order for me to break things down, I wanted, if I had 12 kids, I almost want 4 stations because I don't want kids standing around. I'm going 4 to 5 minutes a station. It's just going to be quick and they're going to go to the next one.
Yep.
Almost to the point where they don't know that they're learning, but they're learning. So I ended up, the example would be, I would take one group and I would always choose the one I felt like that was the most difficult or I wanted to focus the most on. Then I would say, hey, Mark, do me a favor. Set up this cone, have them cross over 3 times, and then you stand over here and roll them a ground ball. But here's what you need to look out for. So I got them encouraged to help, but I didn't allow them to teach their way. And I did it because I knew what I wanted. I knew what I was trying to accomplish. And it's very difficult for me to have people that I either didn't teach it the way that I wanted to teach it. So I would just tell them exactly how I wanted it done. And it worked out. But I really needed them to.
Right.
So
but I think it's brilliant too, because you're getting buy-in from the parents, right? So the parents are involved, right? It's not like the dads are standing around and watching, just critiquing. They are actually part of the development and the practice.
Well, and they saw it. So I still joke to this day. So I have a girl that I've coached. She's a sophomore at Colorado Mesa. She's playing softball up there. parents, I'm still friends with them. I always check in with them. But I always say to her, because they're trying to get me to coach the younger daughter, because now that they've gone through it, they realize that fundamentals, wow, my coach didn't teach this. They don't teach that. So they're trying to get me, keep pushing me to try to do it. But I always say to her, Dad, well, listen, you were there for everything that I did. You saw all my practice plans. You saw my drills. You saw the direction we went. You saw what I tried to accomplish. And I was with them for maybe 6 years. So I said, you should turn around and incorporate that. Even if you're not the head coach, you should relay what it is that we did. So that was always my goal. If I could get coaches, I really needed them, but I also needed them to do it my way. And I just kind of always, even when we got to the All-Stars, now I had buddies who I knew they knew what they were talking about. So I would just kind of say, hey, here's what we're trying to accomplish. But then I always had a few that I knew had a different method than me.
Right.
And I'm not saying it's wrong, but if I'm the one at the end of the day that has to make the final decisions and all that, then, hey, I'd rather you. So
Right.
kind of give them that, hey, over here, here's what I want you to work on. And it would be very specific. Like we would have, and this was even at 10 years old, we would have, one drill where kids would a coach would pitch and all they would do is track balls. They would never swing. They would just stand in and track balls. Why? The habit of seeing a ball, number one, seeing it all the way in, and two, following it into the glove just to build repetition. So I'd have a dad who just stood over there and threw balls.
And I know a lot in, youth sports, there might be a mom or dad that's super involved with their child, like very, very involved, especially with pitching. They're in the backyard, the parents are working with them, they're calling pitches. They wind up on your team, right? So there's a girl, she's a pitcher. The dad is working with her every day. He's working on her technique, calling. How did you kind of manage that where he's not a coach, daughter is one of the pitchers on your team. He is kind of the maybe involved or overstepping parent into that. Like, how do you kind of manage that parent, that, kind of that, situation?
That's a tough one because it kind of depends on the age group. The younger age groups, I never really had that. When we got to the all-star side, we started to see it a little bit more. I was fortunate where I always had coaches that were my assistant coaches. I caught for a couple of years, so I understand, where hitters should be, how to pitch, that type of stuff. But I had coaches that were better at it, so they always did it. And they were good about if they needed to have this conversation, they would have it.
So you would delegate that to, hey, you're an assistant coach, that's your daughter, you manage that situation.
Completely controlled the pitching side of things. It never really became an issue, I think, because people saw that we were doing we were doing the things right. And I truly tried to position myself, like at every level that I was at when I was coaching, I would go out and I would field with them. I would field ground balls with them. I would do the drills with them. I would throw, and I would throw from the outfield fence to the line on a line drive, just to reiterate to the parents that I know what I'm doing, and that I would go field a ground ball and I would make sure my technique was right and it was smooth and all this, so that they could see kind of what it is that I was teaching.
Right.
So that was always helpful. Now, when you get the older these kids got, it became a little bit more difficult, but I always said, I'm not going to, because you get into nowadays, you would know too, there's just so many hitting coaches.
Oh, sure.
And that's not my job. I would tell them, or I would tell the parent, hey, if you want my input on it, or I would actually start it with, you tell me what it is they have you working on. I will make sure that I focus on that specific thing. So I never tried to counter it because they're paying. I didn't really want to fight the fight. And if you're going to go pay and somebody's going to tell you how to hit, now, if it's not working, there may be a lineup change.
And would you talk to the parent? Like, what, I think that
I would mention
your daughter, she's overswinging, she's too late, her whatever that is, it's just off. It's not conducive to getting good contact with the ball. And
I would, because I was never afraid of confrontation.
Right.
I was never afraid that I didn't have the answers. But it is funny because that's what I think a lot of coaches' issues now is they don't have the answers. They don't know. And that's what's really, really frustrating to me. In today's world, I always laugh because even at, let's say, 8U, I spent 30 minutes a day building a practice plan. It wasn't.
Well, we played with you at 8U. We were like 8, 9U. Yeah,
point.
it was.
I would make a practice plan. I would figure out what we need to do. And then the higher the levels got, the practice plans became far more detailed. Like I would sit and just evaluate. Okay, we even went as far one time. This is to kind of just show you how much we put into it. We went as far one time as I told one of my coaches, this was at maybe 14 or 16U softball. We're not stealing enough bases. So I set up a camera. I had the girls, I had somebody pitch. We stopped it. We showed when they're leaving based off release. So we like went back to the basics of how we could do that. So I just spent so many hours thinking of ways to do.
But then did that translate to more stolen bases, more opportunities, more runs,
Absolutely.
more? Yeah.
So at the end of every weekend, I would just sit and go, okay, what were we not good at? What did I not do good? And then I would make a practice plan for the following week.
So if that's me and I have a 6-year-old and I just said, hey, I'm going to be a little league coach or a softball coach, you're scaring the crap out of me right now because I think I need to be spending 30 or 45 minutes every day to come up with a practice plan. And I need to look at fundamentals, YouTube the hell out of everything, right? Like I'm way above my over my skis. I don't think that's necessarily the expectation.
I completely agree. And I'll tell you the simplest form that apparently nobody's thought of. Go ask. That's the funniest part about the whole youth sports, everything is. So we had very good rec teams. We won something each year. And then in All-Stars, we went to states every year and went to nationals. So I have a dad on the team who says, hey, I coach a travel team. And at the time they were like 12 or 13. And he says, hey, I coach, man, would you ever come help me out? And so finally after like a few months, I'm like, yeah, I'll show up. So I show up to do it. And that was it. I absolutely feel like I totally changed the way that he kind of saw things. And I got in and I did drills, but it was all broken down. But yeah, my advice to the parents would be every league, no matter what it is, has somebody that's doing it or doing a good job of it. Just go ask them. And I don't know why people don't do it. It is mind-boggling to me.
And Steve, you are the most accommodating person. You like
I would
right,
leave
absolutely
on Saturday and I would go to somebody's practice,
right.
even if they, just because they asked, I would go help them.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I don't understand why people don't do it.
Even if it's a phone call or a Zoom call or a, hey, I'll meet you after practice and we can sit and discuss, or let's go grab a beer at the pizza place. Like people will accommodate your requests to share their wisdom and knowledge to help you.
I actually thought it's funny you say that because I went and watched my nephew the other day and I actually thought my ex-brother-in-law, because he's one of the assistant coaches, I just sat and I just watched and I could tell you 25 things that, you guys could do. But, that's not why I'm there. But I actually thought, okay, I'm going to get a call.
Right.
Hey, is there...
that was my question. Did he reach out to you?
Is there 3 things we can do? And I just was like, okay. No, I didn't hear. I mean, he called to say, hey, man, thanks for coming by. But nothing about, drills and stuff. But again, I think a lot of it is because people have egos.
Your resume is untouchable, right? It's if you do this, this will happen. These aren't all D1 college players, but if you do it like this, you're going to get amazing results and the girls are going to have an amazing ride.
But what's funny is, so the president of our softball league, when I started, had a very, very high softball background and IQ and all that. We became really good friends. I talk to him all the time. I probably talk to him 4 days a week, especially during like All-Star season. Hey, what drills did you do? So that's why I always laugh. Like, I feel like I kind of had an idea what I was doing.
Right.
But I feel like I didn't know enough or know how to relay it or know how to do it. So I was going to somebody else, getting information. So then I would just, okay, well, that's a great idea. Mm-hmm. And then it would lead from there. But I don't know. It's just crazy.
You got to think most youth coaches are not coming from your background, right?
No, but that's my point. It's just, go ask somebody or throw up a YouTube video and, it's
right.
It is a hard thing though. I give so much respect to people that go out and, it's not easy so a funny story. So it's not easy to coach. Everybody knows that. I mean, hopefully, I think they should make every parent coach something just so that they know, because even my wife would be like, well, why don't you guys do this? I go, okay, you do realize we worked on that for an hour and a half in practice. But it's funny. So when Mark's daughters were playing with me, my older daughter, I think she's 4 years older. And so she came out to help. So at the time we were probably 8.
Yeah. Somewhere.
So she was 12. So she was kind of already in travel ball at that time. So I come out to her and she goes, Dad, can I help you out? Yeah, no problem. So I have, three dads over here. Mark's probably doing something over here. And I go, Dakota, take the girls at first base, throw them balls and get them learning how to make sure we get outs at first base. So she goes over there, comes back 3 minutes later. Dad. I go, what's up? She goes, they're not listening to anything I say. Turn around and look at her and I go, welcome to coaching. Right? It was so funny. Everybody thinks it's easy. It's not. But that's why my belief in overcoming some of that is small groups, make it such a quick pace of learning one thing and then just move to the next one. But they don't
Steve, that is insanely good. Insanely good. Like, I think, if you're listening to this podcast and you get one takeaway and you're a coach or you're thinking about coaching, that is it.
Get help.
The stations, the drills, recruit all the parents, right?
Yeah.
Have them be part of it. I mean, I would, it got to the point where I was trying to do a rolling stop and just get my kids out. And Steve would be like, no, Mark, we need you. No, you're parking your truck. You're going to come home. Hey, we need you on station 4. I think that is huge because you're right. So many go 5, 6, 7, 8 girls deep, 8 boys deep. Let's hit fly ball.
Ground ball. Yeah.
I mean, too, these kids are just like, imagine you're 8 or 9 deep. Once every 8 or 9 minutes, you're getting a.
I did the same thing in soccer too, but softball and baseball to me is even tougher because it's so slow.
Right.
Like my younger daughter played softball for 2 years and was like, yeah, I'm good. This is too slow. So she stuck with soccer, but we kind of had the same approach, on the soccer side too, but kids are so awesome.
My other big question I wanted to ask you is, so, my son or daughter, I've been in rec 4 or 5 years. We're now 10, 11. The travel world definitely starts to come into play. At what point do I think about going that route? Because I feel like now it's like everybody does travel. Like, how would you kind of advise a parent, when's the right time? What team do I get on? How do I even find a team? Like, should I play travel ball? Like, what's the...
So my perspective on that is, and I've had people come ask me at different age levels. So at the younger age level, I say softball and soccer are a little bit different. Soccer, you play a game or two a weekend, and softball is crazy. You play 4 games on a Saturday, and then you play as deep as you can on Sunday. So you're playing minimum 5 games a weekend. So I try to just say to them, can your kid go out and play 5 or 6 games and still want to play at the end of, the thing? Because the parent can't want to. Of course, the parent wants to go. This is travel. Oh, it's so cool. But does your kid, and everybody could sit and look at their kid and say, well, I asked them to go in the backyard and see if they want to throw a ball. And they're like, yeah, no, not even close. Well, that's probably a gauge. So I think you can kind of tell, but it is funny because everyone's in such a rush to get there. So
talk about that, because I feel like that is such a important comment that you made is, right, there is this rush to get the travel ball. And, like that timing, right? 8, 9 might be too early, right? How do you kind of, again, if a parent listening, I have a 9, a 10-year-old. Yeah, some of their friends are on travel ball, but they do really good right now where they're at in rec. Like, how would I kind of navigate that, that next year or two?
Yeah. Well, as far as should I go, one, just know that when you do go, your kid has to be ready. Again, too many parents want it, but just look at your kid and identify whether they want it. Do they love it? Do they go out and just kick balls on their own? And that's probably when if they're far superior to everybody they're playing with, then maybe it's time to move up. How to choose a team, that's a really difficult one. My advice to that would be get an idea of, there's a million teams. Get an idea of, every coach is going to give you the sales pitch, because if you're the 15th player in club or travel, they don't care. You're still paying $150 a month.
Right.
And they need players. So I would figure out the 4 teams that, might be an option. They're in the area, so-and-so plays for them. And then I would go watch the coach. I would watch practices and I would watch games. And I wouldn't let the coach know that I'm there. One, I want to know if my kid's growing. Are they going to teach? Because is it a coach that just sits on a bucket and yells at you when you do something wrong, but doesn't say, hey, here's why that happened? And I think once just watching, you'll know. Kids have to develop. You have to play for a coach that has patience is willing to teach you. But the challenge you get into is once you enter club and travel, it's the same thing. When you choose a team, choose one that you're going to play on. Because it gets to a point where the competitiveness, or if you're going to play for a coach who's so competitive that he cares more about winning than developing, and you make a mistake, or you're the 11th kid, you might not play.
So he's worried about, hey, I can now tell my future players, we got this, and that. We got first and gold here, first and gold there. So I'm not really worried about, Sally, who's number 9 or 10, her development. I'm worried about, placing first in this gold.
That's how the best groups get players, is they win.
But most people, their kid is not the best player.
Right.
Right. We'll take most people, their kid is a plus player.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I'm good enough for travel. In your opinion, better to be a bench player on an A team or a starter on a B or C team?
In my opinion, go play. Be on the field as much as you can. And I say that, go somewhere where you're going to play.
In a game. Because the argument is on an A team, my kid's around higher caliber players, so they're going to theoretically develop faster. But there is something to say, like, yeah, but he's also sitting on the bench, or she's sitting on the bench during the games, right? There is an effect there.
I think you have to decide when you go watch practice and you watch a tryout and you watch this, I think you as a parent truly have to say, she fits in here. If you don't think she does, and I always say this, parents and kids go to do it because they enjoy it and they love it and they have fun doing it. No matter how good a kid is, if they don't have the passion when they're a senior in high school, it doesn't matter anymore.
Amen.
So that's the biggest challenge. So I always tried to position it. And with my daughter, I was fortunate because I coached, so I was able to kind of figure out. But I based our level of jumps off not asking her, off her demeanor. So her and 3 or 4 other players that were on my team, I would evaluate them and see how much they really wanted it, just based off actions, not me asking them. Not, hey, do you guys want to jump? Because everybody wants to go play for, they want to play the best. They want to play this. But her demeanor, at that level, did she hit on her own? Did she field on her own? Did she put in the work? Was she doing this? Things that I knew it was going to take to get to that, play at that level. And she was. So I said, okay, let's make a jump. Let's kind of push to that next level. But, it was sad because we also had some players that weren't ready, and I didn't want them to be stuck in that situation.
But how did you manage that? Because and again, just kind of following your journey, is as you started to, go up in levels, right? There were girls that maybe, were just kind of getting pulled along, maybe out of the 12, 14 girls you had, maybe the 10 were really, but the 4. But again, I'm on the team. I want to play, right? I want my daughter. Yeah. We were going to Colorado for 5 days. I still want my daughter to get at bats, blah, blah, blah. Like, as a coach, is that, are you conscious of that? And how do you manage that, knowing, hey, everybody spent a lot of money, a lot of time, took off work, used vacation time. They're, up here in Colorado at the big, 5-star tournament. Like, how do you kind of manage?
So going back to your question about what team to choose and should my daughter play or not, that's things that if you are interested in, let's just say there's an inquiry into this X team, go talk to some few of those parents and ask them about those big trips. My philosophy was always everyone that was with me played. Now, the deeper we got into it, they didn't play as much, but I never was in a position where my kids didn't. Because again, it was going back to you. It's my job. If you can't field a ground ball at this point, that's my job. I have to teach you how to do it. You should be able to do it. If not, why are you out here? So they did all play. Now, it became very difficult. And to be honest, that's kind of what I didn't really have. And I realized that my last year, I didn't have that. I feel like I had a heart. So it was really difficult for me I never could have taken just really, really like just all nothing but crazy good players because I didn't have the heart to not play people or cut people or I couldn't do it. And it finally just wore on me. I said, my last year was a little bit on the.
Because we were
first year 18U,
okay.
Qualified for PGF.
Right. So, I mean, that's kind of, that's at the top of the pyramid, right? Like you're kind of now at the
Yeah, we were playing some of the really good ones.
Mm-hmm.
Parents.
Yeah, like if my daughters,
It's really, really difficult.
But I think you're right. The parents, there's a portion that are there to win. Then there's maybe some other parents, right? Like my daughter's just kind of on the team. She's not doing as well. We're part of the team. We made the trip.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Well, that'll happen all the way throughout. So that'll start it at 8. You'll have, at the end of every season, you'll have 2 parents who feel like their kids are too good and they need to move on because the other kids aren't. Then you'll have next year, you'll have 3 parents who, okay, our kids are too good. We're going to move on. So it just kind of trickles up and it never goes away.
So that's another one of my, I wanted to get your feedback on is this. Every year I'm jumping teams and I'm trying to get to the better team or the better, whatever that may be. And, again, just talking to so many parents, right? It's always this elusive thing. I want to get my son or daughter to another team, a better team. What are your thoughts on that as far as, because I personally feel that the fit, like my daughters play volleyball, they love their team, they have fun, they do things outside of volleyball, right? They really, there's that close knit that they develop in friendships. But these parents that are just, no, you know what? Like it is about the sport. It is about Johnny or Sally, being the best. And I'm always jumping team.
It's just such an individual preference. Everybody, at the end of every year, I would tell everybody, do what's best for you. I'm not, you just tell me what you think. It's a really difficult thing. Everybody just has to do what's best for them. My belief was always create the culture, create a environment that my daughter's happy in and she's, with her friends and we're good and she's learning. That's the route I went. Not that that's the route everybody goes or that's the right way to do it, but it's really just a personal preference. But just my advice to people would be ask your kid. Don't do what you think because they're the ones that have to live it. And I told my daughter that when she was trying to decide whether to play in college or not. Listen, I know it sounds cool on Instagram, that moment you get to make an announcement. But if you think about it, you're the one that has to wake up at 7, go to practice. You have to live the life after and nobody will even know.
Right.
So do what makes you happy because you're the one that has to live it. So I think ask your kids what they want or just watch their actions and kind of get an idea as to what they want.
Well, I think one of the coolest things was being at your house and Dakota and a couple of her friends were there. It was right when they graduated their senior year. And Dakota was like, I am totally good. Like, I'm not going to play in college, but I am totally good. I don't have any regrets. I love softball. I love everything we did. Yeah. And two of her friends said the same thing. I think one was a volleyball, maybe Troy's daughter, right? Volleyball player, and said the exact same thing. Like, dude, we're good. And I feel like that's the win. That is the ultimate win. I think we've been talking a lot about, you're in high school, there's the travel ball, but also there's playing for your high school. That might be another podcast, but I feel like also, just kind of being part of, the high school experience. Awesome. And then I have my travel commitments and, what are your...
Look back, high school was the best thing ever.
Yeah.
High school sport.
Because you were a 2-sport star, right? Like you did football and baseball and...
Especially...
Oh, that's all right. So Mike, producer Mike, you need to get Steve. We need a close up of Steve like pouring this right here because this is as good as it gets right here. So
this is the golden
mark. And this is my bottle, by the way. It's my bottle. Mike Haviston. Just when you watch this is my bottle. And
yours, Mike.
And
this isn't one of the ones we saved.
And Steve, this is 100% legit. This is not a dupe. It's not like a Louis Vuitton fake,
No switcheroo here.
It's not a switcheroo.
High school sports is, everybody should do it because it's part of the, it's part of the culture, like the spirit, but have a good time doing it. It's not that easy. And I'll say that it's not an easy thing. And it's a really difficult one. And especially like with my daughter's softball is I just did things different and her environments were always different. And she got yelled at a lot. If something happened, they got yelled at, but again, they didn't teach it. So even as a parent, it's really difficult to kind of juggle it. It's hard to, because you're going like, man, just have fun. It's high school. Like we're thinking about ours days. We're like, oh man, we had so much fun.
Right.
What's that? Just, it's so hard to kind of juggle it, even as a parent. Like finally her senior year, she's like, Dad, I I can't do it anymore with this. And I said, no, I totally get it. And I said, I feel like I've given you so many speeches of trying to convince you to enjoy it, do this, do that. I go, honestly, I'm tapped out. I absolutely understand why, you want to do it. But she had a good time. They were really good.
Yeah.
Played 3 years. They won the Michelle Crew Classic, which is like an elite tournament for a high school group. So she had an awesome experience. It was a good time. A few headaches, bumps along the way, but high school sports is awesome. I think everybody should give it a
Yeah, I think it's super cool.
It is super cool.
I think it's super cool. And you're right. It might be a different environment, a different dynamic.
Which is fine, but just, hopefully you can explain to your kids that it's kind of a different environment, but there's nothing better than friends and parents, everybody cheering for you. Like, it's awesome.
What are some pointers that you could give the parents on that post-game ride home, the post-game commentary?
Well, one is, do you know what you're talking about as a parent, right? And I could tell you a million stories of parents that rode these kids, and I would listen to them on the sidelines, and I'm thinking to myself the whole time, you're wrong. Like, you don't even know what you're talking about.
Right.
You're completely off topic. You're not explaining the right things. One, do you know what it is you're talking about? Two, I don't know if I read it or somebody told me about it, but one time somebody said, it was like I don't know if it was a study or something. Kids prefer to go home, prefer the car ride home with their grandparents. Why is that? Because they just tell them how much fun it was to watch them, right? So I think parents have to realize that's not the time to do it.
Right.
Parents realize, one, if you don't understand what you're talking about, and two, sometimes you have to, I feel like what made me a good coach was, and I would even tell kids, I played a game, Hickory, North Carolina, playing pro ball. I had 5 errors in one game. And I would tell kids, I know exactly how you feel. It is the worst feeling in the world. So trust me, I get it. I made mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. I struck out with bases loaded and nothing good came out of it except I got $100 fine for breaking my helmet. Like, I had some bad, so I get what you're going through, and it's part of.
Where did you slam it off of the dugout wall?
Yeah.
Wow, was that
You broke in front of everybody.
Instant ejection?
Well, no, and the best part about it is the head of the White Sox was there.
Yeah, well done.
Yeah, so it wasn't great. It was bad timing, but I had a little bit of a temper. I didn't like to not do well. So it was bad timing, and so my coach fined me $100, and my anger came out again, and I wrote him a check, which at that time, $100 was like
you physically wrote it? You physically wrote that out?
I crumpled it up, and I threw it in his office and walked out.
The storm out.
But my point is, I struck out, so I made sure they knew that.
Right.
Made sure that I failed.
I've been in that situation.
Kids do not want to hear it. Say it the next day, say it a day after. But I mean, if you truly don't know what you're saying, please don't say it. Or just say, hey, I'm going to relay it to your hitting coach. I'm going to tell them kind of here. But last thing they want to do is hear from people that they don't even want to hear from. Let's use Mark as an example. Mark's wife played volleyball in college. The daughters probably don't want to hear one single thing or even think she knows what she's talking about, so they don't want to hear anything about it. And people would always tell me, well, I don't understand, Steve. Why is it that I tell them something, they don't listen, but then when you tell them,
right?
Well, keep that in mind. So have somebody else tell them.
So as we put a nice.
Here we go. I'm waiting for that. I've been waiting for this. Is like Mike gonna go in?
Yeah. Oh yeah. No.
Mike
wants a taste.
All right.
Just a taste. I don't need like 3 fingers or anything, but like just a taste. So it's interesting. When I was coaching Little League with a buddy of mine, our boys, we were neighbors. Our boys are on the same team, and early on we realized you can't coach your own kid.
It's
so
difficult.
Anytime my kid is in practice and he's goofing around or grabbing ass, I'd walk over to him and be like, hey, I need you to go slap the crap out of my kid right now and get him in line.
Yeah.
Because if I did it, it was dad versus a coach correcting a player. So like we learned real quick, and try not to coach your own kid whenever you can. You can have any other person say the exact same words in the exact same tone, and it has a completely different meaning depending on who it's coming to. So for anyone who's just figuring this out,
it is true.
Don't coach your own kid. And especially on the way home, like they just don't want to hear it.
They don't. They know.
Yeah, because they know.
They know they failed. And for somebody to, it's no different than if we go play golf and I beat Mark on 18.
Right.
I say me just because it sounds better.
Yeah.
But, and then all of a sudden the whole ride home, I'm kind of hammered.
Dude, you yanked your drive, you flubbed your
thing I think that happens. I think parents forget when it happened to them.
Sure.
But there's the funniest part about youth sports, and I can give you hilarious examples. Half of these people were no good at it or never did it.
Right.
But now they can criticize it. They can criticize a coach. They can criticize their kid. They can,
Okay, so I think that
the mom's yelling, and I'm thinking to myself, what are you, elbow up? What does that even mean? That's not right. I don't even understand what you're saying.
So that brings up a great point, the living vicariously through our kids. Like when you've seen that, like what is that though? Like what do you think? Because again, no one wants to do that, right? Parents don't set out.
Parents want their kids to succeed.
They want them to succeed, be the best. And maybe we're like, doing what they could be doing. Is that like
they can do better? You think, that's just it's an instinct of a parent. You think your kid can do better. You think your kid, but again, if you go back to just watch their demeanor, do they care? Do they put in the extra effort? Do they try? Kind of just, in my mind, especially at the lower level, base it off that.
right?
I don't know. It's just hard to get a kid who wants to play video games to.
So it's interesting you say that. So my son's playing volleyball and my daughter's playing volleyball, and like I've never played volleyball. A little bit in high school for fun, never competitive. So like I always have an opinion, like, oh well, this kid should have done that, and oh man, that kid had an off day, and boy, your setter was really struggling, and hearing you say that, like I need to really check myself, right? I should just be encouraging and focusing on the positive and encouraging to do things rather than acknowledging all the things that didn't go well.
Or to teach them, if you don't know it, ask them the question. Hey, how do you think, did Joe approach that spike in the right way?
Right.
Just more out of curiosity, but mentally they're going to be going, and it'll kind of tell you if they saw it, if they realized it, if they understand it. So maybe ask them and kind of learn from them, more point out, ask questions about things like that. But it is so funny that you say that because it's just a natural instinct.
Mm-hmm.
Like I wasn't a great student, but I'd probably go home and be like, what do you mean you didn't go well on your math test? And I'm
100%.
thinking to myself, why would I ever say that?
Right.
Oh my God, totally.
That's my role as a parent. So really it's reevaluating your role as a parent, right? Understand what your role in this is. You're not the coach, you're a parent.
Right.
You're there to learn and to encourage our kids. And if you're doing anything other than that, you really need to question yourself.
Or maybe get them a trainer, and then you just, without them knowing, you email the trainer, the 4 things that you noticed that they didn't do well. And then the trainer, what typically would happen, or is that what they call it? Trainer?
Yeah,
I just
trainer.
forgot about it. Maybe the trainer, without saying it, is going to say to them, how were your serves?
Right.
How was your footwork on the this?
Right.
So maybe that's one way to kind of overcome it.
Sure.
That might help.
What about the synergy with the parents, right, on a team? I feel like, I remember going over to your house a couple of times, and we would be sitting around your fire pit, and there'd be 5 or 6 families that were all on the same team, and there just seemed like it was such an amazing camaraderie. You guys would, you'd be at a tournament and you'd hang out together, and it was the parents were having fun, right? And I feel like that's maybe an understated thing, is when you get that opportunity, when you get that kind of environment where, the kids are having fun, the parents like each other. I feel like a lot of times that gets kind of glossed over into all this other stuff that really doesn't matter. How do you kind of keep a team? And I think you did a really good job at that, right? Of keeping a team together, because there was amazing friendships on the team. Parents liked each other. If I'm a parent, again, listening to this, how do I kind of maintain that, or versus hopscotching to a team every year versus, hey, you know what, my son's in a great spot. They like the people they're playing with. You know what, I actually like a lot of the families. What's the value of that?
To me, off the chart. But again, everybody has their priority list of what's important to them. To me, that was always important. So I created the culture of, if I look back on, I'm probably one of the most fortunate coaches in youth sports. Like, I've had the best path in the world. And I don't say that wins, losses, I don't say any of that. We have met our closest friends, and I've been able to keep kids that I follow in college for, some players I had for 6 or 7 years, maybe some 8. So we were able to keep it together. So to me, that was a priority, but I also was able to, we were able to keep the competitiveness at the level that the group wanted. It's kind of a catch-22. To me, looking back on it, and especially even as I did it, it was the most amazing experience I could have ever had because we laughed, we joked, we went and had some beers after games as coaches. We talked about it. We would text about it. I would stay in touch with the family. We would go on a week trip to Colorado. We would sit outside by the campfire 7 nights a week, hanging out while the kids were running around. So looking back on it, not only did I meet amazing people, but my daughter was able to be with people that she looked back and said, I had an amazing time. So I feel like I'm the most fortunate guy on the planet because I got everything that I wanted out of this. And I have so many good friendships to it. And it's funny. So the lady I was telling you about, whose daughter throws at Colorado Mesa, she's like, oh my God, Steve, this time around, she was always my team mom for, I don't know, 5, 6 years, maybe 7. And her daughter's pitching now. She's like, she's coming back through it again. So her other daughter's maybe 12. So as she's coming back through it, she's like, she's so used to, I mean, we would do a Christmas party and all the kids would get a jacket with their logo. All the kids would get like an ornament. Like just totally cool, very close-knit groups. And then even if we added a few kids here and there, it's just the culture we created. She's like, now I go to these, we don't even talk to anybody. We don't talk to any of the parents. They're so in everybody's business and they're so ingrained in what their kid's doing at 12 years old. And why is mine not playing and this and that? So I look back and I'm like, man, I was just so fortunate. So it just has to be something you want, but you also have to be able to keep up. Like I never expected kids to stay that were better than what we could be. So it was a priority for me. So that's why I was fortunate.
So let's just bring this to the audience. If you are coaching and you do not know what you're doing, this is not your sport, you're non-athletic, you're there to support your child, it is okay. Like go out there and
ask your coach, what station can I run for you? And you tell me, what do you want me to do in this station?
You be honest with the coach of what your abilities are, and they will find somewhere for you to thrive.
And the best part about that, not only if they're going to tell you, I just want you to roll the ground ball from here to there. And guess what?
Yeah.
You get to be the coolest guy in the world because you're not going to criticize them. You're not going to yell at them. You're not going to do anything.
Right.
These kids are going to get in the car and go, Coach Joe is the most awesome. Those other ones, all they ever do is yell.
Right.
It's the best gig in the world.
Great point.
So do it. Ask what you can do and just say, and tell them exactly, do you want me to roll the ball to their left foot or their right foot? And then you just do what you do. And then you look like you know what you're doing. The kids think you're awesome.
Did you ever see a correlation between parents that were involved in their children's success versus parents that kind of treated it as a job off and they just kind of watched from afar? And the reason I ask, in scouting, there's a huge percentage
For
of
parents.
scouts that will go further along in their scouting journey if their parents are involved in some way with the troop versus those that just drop off. I don't know if in youth sports, if it translates.
I feel like there's not a lot of parent coaches the higher up you go.
Oh, that would make good sense.
They kind of eliminate that side of it. So yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know if I could
Just curious.
identify that one.
So it's very interesting, you know, again, scouting, there's a phrase that we used to use all the time in our troop, like, this is a safe place to fail. And we focused a lot on making kids fail.
That's all.
Like giving them no's. Like they would come up and ask and be like, no, I'm sorry, it's not me. Find someone else. And half the kids, when they're new, they would like, and they had to learn really on, like, that is not the end of your journey because you got a no, right? That is not the end of this thing you're trying to accomplish because you got one no. Go find someone else, continue to work the problem and set those expectations, because in today's day and age, most parents do everything for their kid. They sign them up, they take them to and from, they buy the gear. When they don't want to go, they force them to go. Like the kids are just along for the ride. And it would be really easy that, hey, finally you've gotten to a level where, hey, I'm not the go-to, or I make an all-star team, but now I'm on the bench, right? And that's just shattering to that kid because they've never had to deal with that.
And the parents.
Correct.
The parents are now, hopping on. That's amazing. I didn't ever realize that's cool.
So safe place to fail. Like, I think that needs to be stressed. And when a kid strikes out or strikes out with bases loaded and ends the game, and it's like, it's okay. Like, we're going to learn from this. This is not the end of the world. This is a blip on the radar you're not even going to really remember in the grand scheme of things.
And so I would always pitch to the kids, and there's a good story about it that's kind of just come up. It just happened recently, but I would always pitch to the kids because I felt like I played with kids that when bases loaded came up, they didn't want to be up. And I don't know why I wanted to be up. Like, I wanted to be the center of attention.
Right.
And I didn't care what happened, but I want to be the guy, like in football and baseball, all of it. But I know guys that didn't. And so I would always try to tell girls, you're not always going to succeed. You may never succeed at it, but you want the opportunity to be that person in that moment. So just accept that you want to be in that position. Don't worry about what happens with it. Nobody cares about that. Nobody's going to care about it in 2 weeks. It doesn't matter. But want to be in the moment. And I would always think about it just because.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. You're down 2-1. It's an elimination game. Maybe it's, you win, you go to the gold medal final, get a leadoff single, fielder's choice, get to second, 1 out. Then your 7, 8, 9's coming up.
It's quite the setup, Mark.
You have, for whatever reason, you have a 485 hitter on the bench. You guys are in Tennessee. You're playing to go to the final.
Well, this is what's awesome.
Right.
This all happens in the moment. And then you have
in the moment.
Base coach yelling to you what you should do.
Yes.
You have the guy in the dugout yelling to you what you should do.
Because you're always third base coach, right?
You have everybody yelling at you what you do. What I always
Did you ever take the hat off and do the hand through the hair?
Probably. I always said, so the way that I always tried to do things when we got into big moments was, let's just use a girl that's playing second base. If she was playing second base in the 7th inning in that moment, and we had 2 outs, and I know we have to have an out, and this girl's hit the ball the right field, 19 times. I would never take somebody in the middle of an inning. But my point to this concept is, if I don't feel like I made a mistake if something happened and I just said, okay, it didn't work out. But if I said in practice last week, we hit 14 ground balls to the girl at second, and she mishandled 11 of them. I already know that's going to happen. That's on me. If something happens and there's a mistake, so I never looked back and said, oh my God, I should have done that. But if I look back on it and said, yep, I absolutely knew that was going to happen. I knew she was going to strike out.
Right.
So so as far as your situation, if the girl coming up to bat was my 8th hitter and this has happened a million times, I would know what her previous 6 at-bats approaches look like.
Right. Maybe she's 1 for 6. Got the ball in play, didn't.
1 for 6. This has happened to me where I've had kids who have such bad approaches at the plate that I already know they're not seeing the ball well.
Right.
They have no confidence. Then yes, I'm going to hit somebody. Why? Because I get at that moment, me given I believe in you, but I also have a responsibility to everybody else. Right. But I already know that your confidence is gone. You haven't taken a good approach. So I have to do what's best with that. So then I would do that. If I left her in and it happened, I would say that's my fault because I could have told you that was going to happen based off the last 8 at-bats. So if somebody lined out 3 times and then it happened, even though she was hitting 0 because she doesn't have a hit, I would say, listen, she's striped the ball well.
Right.
So yes, I'll look on that. If it doesn't work out, absolutely. I'll take responsibility for that. She's in the right position. Confidence, oh my God, it's so crazy.
Huge.
It's nothing different in life. Self-confidence is every single thing. So as a coach starting at a young age, if you can do anything in life, build people's confidence. Even if in a way you lie to them, get them to believe. You have to get them to believe in themselves and let them know. Like, that's why I was such a big believer on, I know you didn't make the play, but your footwork was so good and it was everything that you just worked on.
Yeah, if you had a bullet hit to you and it was like short hopped right in front of you, but hey, you got there, your right.
Footwork, we just worked on it. Oh my God, it was so perfect. Yeah. So if I highlight that, I found something that you did right.
But I feel like no one ever, that's totally lost. That is a lost.
Results oriented.
Correct.
But what builds it? Footwork. Mm-hmm. So the ground ball that person missed, they missed because, like you said, it was short hop. But they made the 87 other plays that got us to the championship game because their footwork was good.
Right.
So you did everything right.
Right.
So point out.
So when like the girls run,
like you were talking about earlier, your conversation where you were talking about the ride home.
Yeah.
Point out the two things that you noticed that they did right. And it may be a game where you go, wow, man, I saw Sally miss a hit, but I saw you go over to her. Right. That was so cool. You know what I mean? Like just things like that will be so, it just means so much to kids and people, and even parents need it, you know?
Right.
Hey, you're doing a good job.
well, I noticed that in volleyball, there's so many points, there's so many, and sometimes the girls will sell out like 100%, make this crazy, diving play. I'll always kind of bring that back. Like, dude, that was an insane play that you made.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That 1 point you got, man, it was a good point.
Exactly.
You guys got smoked 25-1, but let's talk about the one.
Right.
So good.
Well, it is funny. So a funny story like that. So my daughter's high school softball career, she was a good softball player. So I always laugh and I try to think of the way I would do things, but I realize not everybody does them the same way. Not that mine's right or theirs is wrong.
Right.
But I remember a game where Dakota, they got beat by Villa Park. Canyon played Villa Park. They got beat like 15-1. And at the end of the game, I said, Dakota, man, what did he say to you guys? He said, Coach yelled at me because I dove for a ball down the left field line, which concept is runners on second and third, you don't dive for a ball down the left side
Because they will score.
And I'm thinking to myself, you got beat 15-1, and that's what he pointed out.
Right.
It really made me sad.
Right.
It made me sad because to me, it would have been, that was one of the highlights of the game. I don't care if you made the play. I don't care if it was wrong. I would talk to you about the mistake you made later. But that's a highlight that, wow, you went after it and we're down 15. But it just made me sad to think that you're a high school coach. You're supposed to build these kids up. And that's, it's just.
Well, no, as a fan, if a player sells out and he does dive and it gets by him for a triple, like maybe you misjudged it, but dude, the guy's selling out.
Right.
I feel that, that's misplaced, So 2 or 3 takeaways to give to parents managing, navigating, trying to get through youth sports. There's a lot of emotion we all feel.
I would say at the higher levels, make sure you ask them what they want. Mm-hmm. And I always did. I would try to tell my daughter, listen, I already did what I did. So don't think in any way that I'm asking you I'm living through you or I expect anything of you because mine's done. This is you. You have to enjoy it. So that would be my first one is don't forget about them. And also trust your eyes. And I could give you some examples because we've been through some stuff together, but trust your eyes. And if you see that you go to a tryout and it's above, where she's at, trust it. Trust yourself. And even if you have to kind of navigate it because you don't want to break the sad news to your kid, find a way to kind of say like, hey, let's go to another level or let's do something like that. So I would say trust your eyes and be honest with your kid and, don't put them in a situation that they're going to be unhappy with because they may not. It only takes one time. A kid never wants to play again.
Right.
That's the hardest part about youth sports. And that's what I try to tell everybody. It takes one coach for a kid to never want to come back. So that would be 2 of them. And the third one would be, I truly would say, if you were in youth sports for 10 years, try to put yourself in a position where 10 years from that point when you started, look back and say, what could I do to make sure that I look back and not only do we enjoy the experience, but my kid enjoys the experience. And then maybe base some of your decisions off that. I think it'll change the way a lot of people think. I think.
Totally agree. Yeah, I think that's amazing.
Enjoy the ride, man. Watch. I go to Sierra soccer games now, and I would do the same thing because I coached so much and I was always, and one example of it, my daughter would get a hit. And I remember this time she got a hit, doubled down the line, and then made some base running mistake. I'm the coach. I'm always just trying to fix little things. She gets to third base and I go, hey, here's kind of looks at me and she says, why can't you just say nice hit? And I thought, you're absolutely right. Yeah, right. That's absolutely on me. But unfortunately, my job is to try to help you fix these little things. So it's kind of a catch-22. So I would say truly enjoy just sitting back and watching because it really is absolutely amazing. And you'll think about all the cool times. Parents always forget things they did. Think about all the cool times where you just sat back and you're like, oh my God, I just sat and watched this concert. Right. I smiled, I laughed, Put Put yourself in that position and don't lose track of that because of the competitiveness, or it'll work out. Either it'll work out for them or it won't. Just enjoy the ride, man.
And as you're coming to the end of your coaching, life, do you think that maybe, you'll continue to coach with, but you feel like your cup's full, you're good, there's no what about refereeing?
God,
will we see Steve Friedrich?
I don't want anybody yelling at me. It's crazy. I feel so bad for referees and umpires. I was only good to him. I got kicked out of one game out of everything, and that was
only one.
Wasn't my fault. Only one.
I mean, I saw you blow up once at the ump during the girls 8U game.
Oh, you're lying.
Even my dad was like, "Whoa, Steve's really getting kind of off kilter there."
Have you ever gone to an ump and had them change their call? I mean, you always go to an ump and say you don't agree with it.
That's a great
But
one.
have you ever successfully
Yes.
argued a point where they're like, you know what, you're right. Let's change our stance.
So I actually had a guy that I coached a little bit here and there with. His dad was a college umpire, and he had always told me all of it is about. So I guess the way that it has to be done is it has to be the way that you present, the verbiage that you present in order to get what you want.
Sure.
Like really wild. So a funny story about that real quick. Coaches know everything. They yell at everybody. So we were talking about this the other day because we were out and a bunch of the old softball coaches were together. One of the coaches was telling a story. He goes, "Oh, do you remember that time when?" So coach is sitting on the bucket. The umpire in rec softball, probably like 8 or 10U, something like that, is, I'm sure the umpire is kind of a goofball. So he's calling balls and strikes. And all of a sudden, this coach starts hammering this umpire. The umpire calls timeout. He walks over and he goes, "Hey, Todd, you mind if I sit there for a minute?" So the umpire walks over, sits on the bucket, and sits down and goes, "Yeah, you're right. You have a better view than me." Gets up, walk back, and this guy, Todd, goes, "Never made another comment about an umpire the rest of my life."
That is so good.
It was so
That is so good.
There's one point that I forgot to make that I would absolutely love to make to parents. Because I think, again, we forget as parents what it was like for us, what we went through. You have to go back and put yourself back in those, elementary school days, the high school days. So one thing that I would mention is the difference. It's very difficult for parents of our generation to hammer at things. And I say that because so my version, if we think about it, right, today's version of travel baseball is 5 games throughout a season. I mean, I don't know what it would be, but it's got to be outrageous, right? My travel baseball, they came to me and said, "Steve, do you want to play travel baseball?" Which was American Legion. I said, "Yeah, what is it?" They said, "We play in the summer. You play a game on Tuesday, you play a game on Saturday, and you never practice." I said, "I'm in." So my point to that is we went all the way to the American Legion World Series in Tennessee. So my point to that is the version of when we did it, parents have to ask themselves, if I said to you, "Mark, you could play American Legion," and you're like, "Yeah, this is your travel ball for the summer." And then in high school, you just play, you'd be like, "Yeah,
done.
Limit.
Easy."
Now, if I came to you and said, "Hey, do you want to play travel ball in today's environment?" Okay, well, what's that going to entail? You're going to get a trainer, and you're going to do that. You're going to go to hitting once a week for 30 minutes, and you're going to play 6 games on a weekend. How many weekends in a year?
52.
So you're going to play 40 weekends in a year of travel baseball. I think we forget about that.
Right.
I think we forget that it's a year-round thing. There's a lot to it. It can be exhausting. So I think it's really difficult. We always talk about the era in sports, right? It's hard to generate. Mm-hmm. It's really difficult for parents of our generation to judge
Gen X
that, because nowadays what it takes and what they do and how much it entails, right, there really is so much more to it. Like when Dakota decided to stop. So you play travel softball. After high school, you go back to travel softball. And then you play throughout the summer. Well, we did it every year. So I told her, if you don't want to play, we won't, and you're done playing, you're not going to play in college, then we're not going to go back for the summer of travel softball. And she said, "Okay, I don't want to play." And we got a little bit of heat for it from some people. And then she said to me, Dad, do you know that I've never had a summer off?
Right.
My niece said the same thing.
Yeah.
She said, since I've been 7 years old, I have not had, 8 years old, I have not had a summer. Right.
It was fun.
Yep.
And there was stuff to do. But she
Yep.
said that, and I was like, holy cow.
No, but to your point, Steve, right? It was
parents have to
right.
understand.
It was spring ball. It was all stars. It was states. It was nationals. Right. And so by the time she got to her junior year, my niece was finally like, I just want to be able to like hang out at the mall. Right. I just want to be able to like go with my friends to the beach July 19th, not be in Lancaster.
Right.
For the entire week.
So it's hard for us to just see that,
Yeah.
but we have to go back and think, we never experienced this. We didn't go through it.
Right.
And I even say now, as far as I went, I look back and I go, I don't know how far I would have went if you would have required that from me.
Yeah.
Now, I feel like I had the motivation, that drive, and I would have probably wanted to, but I don't know that because I don't know that I would have wanted to play.
But when do you think you knew you were really, really good? Like, was there a moment when you knew, wow, I am really good at football and baseball?
Well, I guess
an athlete. Like,
it's
I
tough.
am.
Did I know that I could go somewhere with it, or did I know that I was good?
You just knew you were really good. Like, I am really good at this sport. No, but didn't you say your senior year you battled like 550, 12 home runs, right?
I felt
for
some reason I always felt like I was good, but not to. I mean,
but was it your senior year or junior year? Like, when did you just, in baseball, you were just like off the charts good?
My senior year, I was really led Orange County in home runs,
Right.
RBIs.
Yep.
I knew something was going to come out.
But you were coming off your fall football year.
But my sophomore year, so I was into my freshman year, going into my sophomore year. That was the summer we played American Legion. So the guys that I played with.
So freshman year in high school.
Troy.
At Troy, you're frost off, or were you?
Yeah, I played frost
off. Then you play.
Then my sophomore year,
Yep.
They wanted me to play varsity, and my dad went to the coach and said, do you see him playing? I'm like, well, we don't know. We can't guarantee him. My dad said, okay, well, then he's going to stay on JV. So I stayed on JV. Well, then CIF came around. We played our first game. They called me up. I started. I played, the whole time.
3 for 4, 2 doubles, couple runs.
I think it went okay. So
We had our people look you up. We have your stats.
So, but no, I mean, I feel like I always, like in football, I was probably by my junior year, things went well. My junior year of baseball, things went well. But yeah, I had like a crazy background when it came. But I played with we went to the American Legion World Series when I was my freshman year, end of my freshman year. Like Steve Traxel was one of our pitchers. Our shortstop got recruited to go to Miami out of there. I was the youngest guy on our team, I think. I started in center field. And then Tommy Wilson. We had probably on that team, we probably ended up with 4 or 5 guys that.
It's a lot. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, we were good. We were really good. Yeah. We played out of 4,000 teams. I think we ended up 5th in the country. And it was cool because we were just a bunch of California kids that nobody cared at the time, and it was no big deal. But yeah, it was a fun ride, man. I never look back. The only thing I look back and regret, one thing in my whole life I probably regret, and I never should have left Cal State. I got drafted out of high school by the Twins, 32nd round, and I didn't go. So I went to Cal State Fullerton, Augie Garrido's first year back.
Why did you choose to go college versus the draft? Or
I wasn't ready. I was
maturity ready
and
skill.
Augie Garrido was coming and Cal State, and it was just such a big, huge opportunity that I just went that direction.
It was Phil Nevin still there?
He was our third baseman.
Yeah. So he was.
Yeah, we were good. We lost to Miami in the.
So your junior year, right? You go into the draft, you get drafted. Did you consider, hey, do I go back to school or do I go into the White Sox organization?
No. The way mine played out is drafted out of high school.
Right.
Didn't go. I went to Cal State.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, they were a top 5 school.
Yeah. Right.
And then, so my freshman year, I played too much to redshirt, but not enough that I was one of my big issues, I didn't love school, so I wasn't, totally thrilled with it.
Yeah.
But that's where I come back and say, listen, I wish somebody would have sat me down and said, listen, Steve, because I was used to being kind of the guy.
Right.
I wish somebody would have come to me and said, you're a freshman. The center fielder for us right now was a number 1 pick out of high school. The third baseman will be the number 1 pick in the draft. The blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
All the guys that we have on our team. But nobody sat down, tell me this, Steve, relax. you're a freshman. So I had a bunch of buddies at the JC, and the coach he had been pitching me for 3 years. So I was like, I'll go over there. So I ended up going over to the JC, and I told Augie, hey, I'm going to come back. I'll come back my junior year. I just want to go play every day. I didn't know what the second year would look like. And I didn't absolutely love school, but my whole goal was to just go sign because I preferred that over school. So I ended up going to the JC for a year and then did a workout with the White Sox. And then they drafted me, and then Cal State called back to say, hey, we want you to come back. But I said, hey, I already committed and signed with the White Sox at that point. So then I left and went to Florida after that.
Which, I mean, I feel like that was the right trajectory. Right. And I think one of the most interesting points is, you get into the White Sox organization and you make a couple all-star teams and just the length of the season. Right. And how you said, hey, I'm hitting like 315, 320 at the all-star break, but I wind up hitting 250. Was that transition just
unbelievable? So I remember I always felt like I was good.
Mm-hmm.
I was probably overly confident, right? But I felt like I was good.
No, but like you're the best person in your high school. You're one of the best people at Cal State Florida in a top 5 college program.
It's good.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was fast. So we leave. I go down to the first day we get down there.
And you got Ron Gant running next to you.
My hitting coach one year was Dwight Evans.
Yeah.
He was my hitting coach my first year. So we get down there, and first thing is you meet up with all the players. And what was his name? Dent. I forget. Well, he had been in an organization forever, and he says, okay, I want to tell you guys something. I know that you guys have been told your whole lives that you can try as hard as you can. I'm going to tell you what. You can try as hard as if you can't do it, you won't be here. I go, holy crap. So then now we go out on the field. We get out on the field and they set up a electronic gun to test everybody's speed.
Down.
That night, I go home. My dad goes, hey man, how's everything going? I go,
not good.
Holy crap, Dad. I just went from fast to average.
Right.
That's how shocking it was, where all of a sudden now I'm thinking to myself, okay, now you have 1% playing college.
Right.
1%. And I'm like, I think we found
now you're like the very, very tip of the pyramid.
It was crazy. It was so wild at how good, but it was such an amazing experience. I wish I would have stayed at Cal State just because they would have won a national championship. They did in 92.
Right.
They won. I wish I would have stayed there.
So you left the year before.
I did. But it is funny when you're choosing what you want for your kid and you evaluate your kid personally on your own, and you have to be honest, and you're not. And most people aren't. They think kids are a lot different than they are because they see those 3 magical.
But what do you think that is? What is that?
So somebody told me this.
What's that like dichotomy, right?
Somebody told me this one time. A parent sees the good things their kids do, but they don't see all the other stuff. So they don't see it. So they go, well, why is my kid not playing? Okay, well, she's hitting 120 and we're in the championship game. I know, but Sally didn't have a hit. I know, but Sally's hitting 470, and I know she didn't have a hit last at bat, but the 19 before. I know, but
she had like 9 hits.
But Maddie had a hit a couple weeks ago. So they just don't. They just
Are most of that correspondence on email, or is it direct conversation?
Honestly, my ride was awesome. The last year was a little bit harder because it became far more competitive. Kids wanted to get recruited, so I was talking to college coaches. So it became a little harder at that stage. Right. But I really had an amazing ride with no headaches, not too many headaches. And I always had a reason why I was doing it, but I also played. So a buddy of mine, really good friend of mine, told me, you'll never lose a game because you played a kid. You lose games because your best players didn't play well. So I always said, okay, well, I could put those 3 kids in because if we're going to win, if your 3 best players play well. So everybody thinks that if you put that kid in right field and they miss a ball, you're going to lose a game. And it's so funny because I always watch Laker games. I watch the baseball games, all these games. And everybody always points out we lost because they missed the free throw.
No.
And I could give you 97 other reasons why they lost.
Right.
and plays they didn't make, but everybody forgets it. So the biggest one is the Cubs. You remember when the poor kid got screamed at for touching the foul ball?
Oh, yeah.
You do realize the play before that was
shortstop
ball to the shortstop.
Yeah, exactly.
Double play.
Yep.
He booted.
Right.
They would have been out of the inning.
Right.
But nobody wants to remember that.
Correct.
Because people...
Yeah, and Bartman is still
Bartman,
living in, and hiding.
Right.
Yeah.
People don't understand and they don't think. That's why I truly, when I go watch a youth game or a high school game or something, I like to just go sit over there. Because I don't like to listen to what everybody has to say, because I just want to sit. I want to watch it, because people say things that are crazy.
Right.
Off the wall. It's wild.
I always tell my kids, like, the games that you lose, I'm like, well, blow it off. It's all practice for tomorrow. Like, it does not matter. Right?
It really does.
If going through whatever it was makes you better tomorrow, then that's all that matters.
Right.
Right? Like, yeah, of course, in the moment you're playing to win, and the players should be playing to win. I don't necessarily agree the coaches should always be coaching to win.
Oh, I totally agree.
But the players, yeah, that's the point. We play to win. They're going to do everything within their power to win the game.
And then at the end you walk away.
Correct. And it's all practice for tomorrow, because yesterday's game does not matter anymore.
Right.
As long as it made me better for tomorrow.
Like life.
Youth sports, like, it does not matter. Like, you're playing frosh.
Right.
Who cares? You're not playing varsity. It's not your senior year. Even varsity your senior year, if you have aspirations for college, this is all practice for your college career. Right? In the grand scheme of things in life, it does not matter. Stop giving it so much weight. Like, let's have a little perspective.
But is it them that give its weight, or is it people around them that give?
No,
that's the hard part.
And me, as soon as I learned that lesson as a parent, my life got so much easier, because I'm not hung up on the wins and losses. I'm still probably talking about, coaching my kid a little bit too much, and I should just focus on the positive, which is a lesson learned in today's discussion, which I will try and implement in my life. But yeah, it's all practice for tomorrow. Like, you're going to be better tomorrow because of the experience you had today. Again, safe place to fail. Failure is not a negative. Like, we learn from
it's life.
What are you going to do differently so you don't fail the same way again?
Right. And I feel like the kids, I know at least my kids, when they lose, they get in the car, they're totally like, what are we doing? Calling their friends. It's just like a game. It's like one of a million volleyball games that we're going to play.
But again, a parent has to realize that.
Right.
Correct.
If they don't care, not that they don't care, because that's probably the wrong way to put it. But if it's not hurting them, it can't hurt you more than it hurts them. So when we moved up levels of softball, and we had kids that may not have been ready to move up to the next level. And mine was, listen, you're putting me in a bad spot. I would always say to the parent, listen, I need you guys to make a decision. Your kids have to go to hitting lessons. Your kids have to be at every practice. Your kids have to go to the tournaments. But what I'm asking you, because we've all known each other for a long time, you can't want it more than them. So if you look at them and you truly say, I don't know that they could do all this, then please go that route. Because for you, every parent wants it for them, but you don't have to go to practice.
Right.
You don't have to go to these tournaments. You don't have to sit in a dugout when maybe you're going to play one inning out of 42. You don't have to do it. I know it sounds cool. And the biggest one was just when it came down to kids choosing colleges and schools and all that, it's a tough thing.
Well, did Dakota have a struggle at all, or was she very content with, like, you know what, I had an amazing softball career.
So there's one moment.
My cup is full. I'm good.
There was one moment when it all happened. So we were going to camps. We went to a few different camps, and the next one in line was San Luis Obispo. So a buddy of mine told me, go to places where she would want to go to school if softball wasn't around. Go to a super small place so that she could see a campus that's really tiny. Like, go to all these different types of places to get an idea of what she wants. So we're on our way to San Luis Obispo. And as we're driving up there, we're kind of in that, Dakota, if you don't know if you want to play or don't want to play, maybe go to a JC for a year and see what the softball world looks like at that level and see if it's something you're interested in. So then that's one conversation. The next one is trying to explain to her that, which we talked about earlier, you can't make your decision because it's cool in the moment you post it, because you have to, for example, be like, well, you can't go into, you can't be a whale watcher when, oh, it's super cool because I get to announce it. But
Right.
I have to go to Alaska for 4 years.
Exactly.
Right.
So I tried to explain that to her. So then we drive to San Luis Obispo and I'm having this conversation with her. We get up there and first day we drive around, we look at the campus. And my whole goal was I always took my kids to the campus when people were there so they could see what the environment was like and the campus and all that. So we get there and we drive around for a while. We walk around. She goes, Dad, I would play softball here, but I wouldn't go to school here without softball. So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, now this is where I want it to go. And all this is because I spent the time talking to my buddy who's already been through it, and he's given me this advice. So then we go to a camp and there's 60 kids at a camp. You pay for it. It's a 4-hour camp. We're 2 hours into the camp and I'm just chilling, hanging out. And all of a sudden she's doing drills. And by now, she's played a ton of softball. She's been to different camps. She's done a bunch of stuff. She comes over to the station. She looks at me and she goes, Dad, I don't want to do this every day. And I looked at her and I said, this is what we were trying to do. So she ended up doing that. We finish the camp. We hang out. We go to a nice little dinner, all that. And then we're driving home. And she said, I don't want to play softball every day. And I said, that's all I want to know. My goal was to figure out what you wanted in life and what you wanted for your college career. And so that decided, her being in a 4-hour camp going, I can't do this every day. I go, that's it. That was the answer right there.
Do you think it would have been different had she not played 100,000 games and had 52 million practices from the time she was 6 until that point?
Looking at the way that I grew up, absolutely.
Right, because you didn't have the same experience, right? You had other experiences. You played other sports. You had summers off. You did different things versus kids that specialize early, and then you have burnout much earlier than like we did in our generation.
Well, and I completely agree with it. It would have been a whole different animal. The burnout side of it is a tough one because in today's environment, you don't have another option. That's the way.
The skill set, you can't develop the skills unless you're specializing early and developing for this many years ahead of time.
Because of club, I don't think you can play multiple. Mm-hmm. So Dakota had a wild, I give that kid so much credit. So she played club soccer, and it wasn't because we pushed her to do it. She wanted to do it. She played club soccer and club softball. So she would go, because I was the coach of both, she kind of got the short end of the stick. She would have to go. There was no excuses. We would go to a soccer game, leave, go to softball practice, go back to a soccer game. Well, what we found out was every Monday she missed school because she was sick out of exhaustion.
Yeah.
So she finally cut out, soccer. Now, I think she totally enjoyed the experience. It was amazing. But the problem is they don't have the option to do what we did.
Right.
You don't. And in our day, it's so funny in our day, even in today's environment. Okay, if you could take Mark Caveston, who could play any sport better than everybody else, in high school, why wouldn't I just let you play whatever you wanted to play?
Right.
And today they hammer you for it. So my daughter played volleyball her freshman year and did a good job. Her sophomore year, they told her, to me, if you're just a good athlete, you're going to figure it out. Right. You're going to do well. They told her sophomore year, if you don't play our club, you'll never play on varsity.
Wow.
Yeah, that's crazy.
You're like, I will my senior year, I promise.
Right. Regardless of it's just wild. I don't know. It's just, and I didn't try to figure it out because it's so different than when we did it.
For sure.
I didn't even try to figure it out because I'm like, I don't even know.
Yeah.
It's wild. You sports as well. Just enjoy the ride, man. It's so awesome.
I think that's it. Enjoy the ride.
Make it awesome.
I've always said it's an activity. I've always approached it. It's an activity.
Huh.
And, trying to get our girls in a great spot where they have fun and they enjoy what they're doing. They have great friendships. And, it's like the winning and losing is kind of an afterthought.
It's funny that in an environment today where work-life balance is so key because we're all overworked and we have no balance in a lot of ways. when it comes to youth sports, we are so far off the deep end that we sacrifice our kids' childhood. We're donating our kids' childhoods to a sport.
It's funny because I was just having this conversation the other day where I said, we went to the World Series. We went to states, regionals, and the World Series in American Legion. This was over the summer. Again, it wasn't like we played 24 games.
Right.
It was pretty random. My dad gave somebody $200 and said, hey, I'm working. I have 3 other kids. Can you take Steve with you? And gave him $200. Then I go to travel softball, and we're doing all these tournaments. We're going to Utah. We're going to Colorado.
Right.
People are using their vacation to go to Colorado and fully, like, they're bringing family members.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And that's when I thought to myself, this whole thing is crazy.
Yeah.
Like, literally crazy.
It's a little over the edge.
So do you think this just keeps going on in perpetuity?
No, it's business. And in club soccer, if you think about it, right, it's what? $400 a kid, like, let's just say average.
Yeah.
Club soccer. These organizations are giving the sales pitches, are giving everything for what? $2,400.
Yeah.
Kid, it's such a big
Right, we want that
business now and they're scaring parents. They're giving them well, if you don't do this, you're going to be behind. Your kid's never going to get NIL money. You're never going to get, so it's just, every parent you just have to know what you want, follow that path.
Right.
Gotta be.
Because I think Steve, we were pumped you came in.
Cabby.
We were pumped to get rolling, and we were super stoked.
Yeah, this was fun, man.
And I think for everybody listening, I feel like the knowledge you just threw down was amazing, and I feel like so many parents, not for any reason, they just kind of get a little bit off kilter, and you just kind of brought the perspective into place. Like, hey, this is what youth sports is. This is how to coach youth sports. This is how to manage youth sports. So we're super excited that you came in. And
well, hopefully people take something away, and don't forget, it's about the kids. I don't know that
it's all about the kid. It's all about the kid. Well, hey, thanks everybody. We will see you next time.
Thanks.